Okay, bear with me. I've got a cold that won't let go, so my voice is going to sound a little off, and I may have to stop to take a drink of water every once in a while. Here goes. There's a version of media planning that feels responsible. You have channels with measurable returns. You can show your leadership team a report card with clear numbers, and the math looks good, sometimes great. The problem is that looks good on paper and drives property growth are not always the same thing. Welcome to Drive Time Marketing. Hi there, and welcome back to Drive Time Marketing, the show where we help casino marketers turn strategy into action and insights into impact. I'm Julia Carcamo with a cold. Today, we're talking about how managing your media is a little like managing a portfolio. I moderated a session recently at the Indian Gaming Association trade show and convention with 3 people who have seen this play out across dozens of regional and tribal casino markets. Chad Hallard, who launched Caesars Entertainment's digital marketing program in 2001 and has spent the years since working with regional and tribal properties. Catherine Montoya, advertising manager at Tachi Palace Casino Resort in California's Central Valley with 18 years at the property, and Adele George, owner of AM George Marketing, who has been planning and buying media for Native American casinos for 25 years. Here's what I came away with, and it's a frame I keep returning to. Your media mix should be managed like a stock portfolio, not because it's a clever metaphor, but because it's operationally accurate. A portfolio isn't all index funds. It isn't all bonds. It's a mix of holdings calibrated to your goals, your market, and your tolerance for short-term volatility. And it gets rebalanced over time as conditions change and the performance data accumulates. Your media plan works the same way, whether you're managing it that way or not. But let's talk about the trap hiding in your best performing channels. Certain channels are always going to win on paper. Google Ads is the clearest example for me. You spend $1, the platform reports that you made 10, leadership is thrilled, and the natural next move is to put more money there. Chad has watched this pattern play out across markets for years, and he's really direct about where it leads. He says the channels that are easiest to measure tend to get overinvested over time. When you concentrate too heavily at the bottom of the funnel, targeting people who are already in the moment, already looking for somewhere to go, you're not creating demand, you're just capturing it. And in a regional market with a finite local audience, a significant portion of that new traffic is often people who were already likely to visit your property. So the report card looks great, but the property's long-term health is a separate question. This is what Chad called the measurement trap, the gap between what makes your advertising look efficient and what actually drives growth. It hits regional operators particularly hard because you don't have the luxury of a destination market constantly replenishing itself with new visitors. Your audience is local. Your repeat visitation depends on awareness, consideration, and genuine familiarity, not just conversion. Hollow out the top and the middle of your funnel in favor of low funnel efficiency, and you'll feel it eventually, even if your weekly report looks fine in the meantime. After the break, we're going to talk about why regional markets have a genuine case for traditional media and how you can balance your media mix. This summer, Casino Marketing Bootcamp is bringing you 2 different ways to get stronger. First, there's Casino Marketing Bootcamp Midwest, happening August 4th, 5th, and 6th in Tulsa. This is where we really put the bootcamp into Casino Marketing Bootcamp. It's hands-on, practical, and built for casino marketers who need time to step back, think clearly, and build stronger marketing plans and calendars. The tagline says it best. It's where your ideas become your blueprint for success. Then later in the month, on August 24th and 25th, we're launching the new Casino Marketing Bootcamp, Direct Marketing. I'm especially excited about this one because direct marketing is still one of the most powerful engines we have as casino marketers. This event is all about helping you make every list, every offer, and every dollar work harder. So whether your team needs to build a plan or improve one of the most important performance engines in your department, there's a Casino Marketing Bootcamp for you this summer. And like all of our events, both include early bird pricing and discounts for groups of 3 or more. You can learn more and register at casinomarketingbootcamp.com. Welcome back. Here's something that doesn't get said clearly enough. Traditional media is not a fallback position for regional casino marketing. In many markets, it's the right tool for the job. Think about who your guests are and how they live. They drive to your property, sometimes 30 minutes, sometimes 90. They listen to local radio during that commute. They watch the morning news to check the weather and catch the high school sports scores. Your property's name, heard on those stations and seen on those screens, is building something that a banner ad or a paid search result can't replicate: the ambient, consistent presence of a brand that belongs to the community. Adele has spent 25 years buying media in markets across the country, and her starting point is always the same: understand what actually reaches your audience before you decide what to buy. And in rural and semi-rural markets, internet penetration isn't uniform. Cable access isn't consistent. Radio and outdoor can reach people in corridors where other channels don't. You have to know the reach of all these things that you're trying to use, she told our group, because sometimes those mediums don't necessarily work that well, and sometimes they work better than anything else in the mix. Now, Catherine's experience in the Central Valley reinforces this from the property side. Her market includes 4 or 5 competing casinos within a relatively short drive. Visibility isn't optional, it's existential. She says they can't afford not to be in any type of media. They have to have a little bit of everything. That's not a budget problem or a strategic hedge. It's an accurate read of what it takes to maintain share of voice when your guests have multiple options and are deciding where to go based on what they've seen and heard lately. The community connection dimension is worth naming directly. Regional casinos compete differently than destination properties. Your guests aren't choosing between you and a resort in another state. They're choosing between you and a competitor down the road, and they're making that choice in a community where your name either carries meaning or it doesn't. Local radio, sponsorships, morning news presence, outdoor placements on the roads your guests actually travel, these investments build recognition that no digital channel replicates efficiently. They also signal something about who you are as a property: present, invested, and local. A balanced media mix isn't a fixed ratio. It isn't 60% digital and 40% traditional, or any number someone hands you as a benchmark. It's a mix where every channel has a defined job. Every dollar knows what it's trying to accomplish, and the whole is calibrated to your specific goals and your specific market. Now, Chad offered a framework worth keeping. Start with your goals: acquisition, retention, reactivation, or some combination of all three, and to what degree each matters right now. Then identify your audience segments and where they actually spend their attention. Not where a media rep told you they do, but where your data and your market knowledge says they are. And then you build outward from there, with enough investment in each channel to move the needle and enough discipline not to spread so thin that nothing performs. One thing worth noting is in today's environment, most channels can serve most functions in the funnel if you deploy them correctly. Connected TV, for instance, is no longer just a broad awareness play. You can use your CRM to remarket directly to lapsed guests through CTV, turning what looks like a high funnel medium into a precision retention tool. What matters isn't a channel's historical category, it's how engaging the medium is for what you're trying to accomplish, and whether you have a budget to deploy it at a scale that actually produces results. The last point matters more than it might seem. One of the more consistent patterns Chad sees across regional properties is budget fragmentation. Individual restaurants, amenities, and departments each gets a small siloed allocation, and those dollars get spread across multiple channels at levels that are too small to perform. An $800 monthly digital budget for one restaurant doesn't give an algorithm enough data to optimize it. So consolidating those allocations into a single food and beverage fund, flexed by season or an event calendar and need, gives you actual working media. It's a harder internal conversation, but it's the right one to have. Any honest conversation about media planning eventually reaches the subject of testing, and any honest conversation about testing has to begin with how much time it actually takes to learn something useful. A consensus from our session is 60 days at minimum, 90 if you can get approval for it. Not because that's an arbitrary number, but because a single month doesn't give you enough signal. A slow month, a competing community event, an unusual weather pattern, any of these can suppress results in ways that have nothing to do with your media. Adele was really direct about this. She says gone are the days of putting a few $1,000s in to see if it's going to work. You really actually have to invest in it, and you have to do it properly. The other discipline worth building into your testing practice is a control group. When you launch a new campaign, hold back specific zip codes from your buy. Then compare performance in those holdout zones against the markets where the campaign ran. If your test markets show lift and the holdout zones stay flat, you have real evidence that the campaign moved the needle, not just that a good month happened to coincide with your new spend. It's a simple methodology, and it gives you something concrete to bring to leadership when you're asking for room to keep experimenting. One more point on testing: the worst outcome isn't a test that fails. It's a test funded at a level too small to produce meaningful results, then used as evidence that a channel doesn't work. Size the test to be felt. If it works, the property should feel it. If it doesn't, the property should feel that too. Either way, you learn something real. One area where regional casino marketers often give away more authority than they should is vendor reporting. Every vendor has an incentive to look good, and most reporting systems are built with that incentive baked in. The specific issue Adele and Chad both flagged is attribution windows. For instance, Meta's default view-through window is 24 hours, meaning if somebody sees your ad and then visits your property within the day, Meta takes credit. Many CTV and programmatic vendors default to 30 days. If you're running both and comparing their reported results without accounting for that difference, you're not getting, as my friend Melissa says, apples to apples comparison. You're evaluating channels against each other using incompatible measuring sticks. The fix is straightforward, even if it takes some pushing. Require all your vendors to track conversions using the same window. A 7-day view-through is a reasonable standard across channels. Some of your vendors are going to resist. Shorter windows mean less credit for them, but push anyway. They won't like it, but you have to get them all equal. At a broader principle, treat vendor-provided data as directional input, not as your source of truth. Your source of truth is your property, floor traffic, ticket sales, new member enrollment, total revenue. When those numbers move in the direction you want, something is working. When they don't, no vendor report changes that. If you don't have an independent analytics layer, Google Analytics at a minimum, running separately from your vendors, that's worth addressing before your next planning cycle. It gives you a neutral data set that isn't shaped by any partner's interest in how the numbers look. If you laid out your current media mix and asked honestly what job each dollar is doing, could you answer specifically? Not we're on digital and traditional, but this investment is building awareness in this market. This investment is reactivating guests who haven't visited in 90 days. This investment is maintaining community visibility for guests who drive past our outdoor on their way to work every morning. That's portfolio management. It isn't more complicated than what you're already doing. It just requires making the implicit explicit. Being clear about what you own, why you own it, and what each investment is supposed to accomplish, and what you change if the conditions in your market shifted. Most regional operators haven't had a structured conversation about this in a while. The day-to-day demands of running a marketing program are real, and planning discipline is one of the first things that slips. That's exactly what a media audit is for. Thanks for joining me on this week's edition of Drive Time Marketing.